Feeling Through was an Academy Award nominated short film about the unlikely connection between a teen in need, played by Stephen Prescod, and a deaf-blind man, played by Robert Tarango. The film, the first ever to feature a deaf-blind actor in the lead role, was written and directed by Doug Roland and was based on his own chance encounter with a deaf-blind man. We spoke with Doug Roland and Stephen Prescod about their experience making the film. Thank you very much. Congratulations on the film and on the well-deserved Oscar nomination. I'm sure it's been pretty gratifying for you both.
Indeed, yes. We're super grateful and honored to be in the mix here.
Doug, I want to start with you. Now, it's based on a true story, obviously. You partnered with Helen Keller Services to help make the film. Besides the obvious assistance they could provide, was there any part of that decision to help make it appear as if it's not being exploitative for the audience and for in this case Robert or Artie?
It was born out of instinct, really. I'd written this film, what was about 9 years ago, actually. Now, a year after the real life encounter that it was heavily inspired by, but it lived on my computer for a number of years because I just didn't feel like I was ready to make it in the way I wanted to.
Sure.
And then about a little over 3 years ago, on a fateful rainy day, sitting in a coffee shop in Los Angeles, cleaning up my messy desktop of my computer, I opened a folder I hadn't opened in a while, read a script I hadn't read in a while, and which was feeling through. And instantly in that moment, I knew I wanted to make it. And with no hyperbole, literally seconds after that, I was Googling deafblind organization, just out of instinct. Literally called the first number that came up on Google. And it was this gentleman who works in deafblind services in the Bay Area, but I didn't know who he was. It was just the first number on Google. And on the phone, I told him about the film I wanted to make. And literally just on the spot, I hadn't thought about it yet. And I said to him, and I feel like I want to cast a deafblind actor. Is that crazy? Because at the time, I'd still only met this one individual who's deafblind, Artemio, years prior.
Right.
And this man said to me, no, that's not crazy. You should reach out to the Helen Keller National Center. So that was actually the origin of why I reached out to the Helen Keller National Center in the first place. But it proved to be invaluable because we actually had many months of lead up to shooting the film between the time I connected with HKNC and you agreed to do this together. And by the way, Helen Keller Services is the parent company, so it's kind of one and the same.
Sure.
So it was an opportunity for me to not just to have guidance in this. It was much deeper than that. We're 3+ years into our relationship. Sue Rosensky, who's the CEO of Helen Keller Services, is my co-nominee. We've worked together very closely for 3 years to not only make this film, but use it to raise awareness for the community. So it ended up just really being a very genuine and authentic partnership that grew organically. And through the course of the last 3+ years, we've learned how to, use this partnership to the best of our abilities in a number of different ways.
That she was a little skeptical at first. Do you think the fact that it was a true story, did that help ease her a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Sue is someone who I was trying to get through to for a while. She was running at the time. She was the executive director of Helen Keller National Center, now the CEO of the whole organization, Helen Keller Services. But mind you, someone who was quite busy and had someone who was reaching out to her who had no direct connection really to the community. But it was we actually. Very fortunately, she was visiting LA and we met up. And it was during that meeting where she really recognized the sincerity and the authenticity with which I wanted to tell this story. And that's when we really just hit it off. But yeah, I mean, I think it was initially, it wasn't until she understood how deeply this resonated in me in person. It was at that point where she realized that it was legit.
Right. How did can you talk about how Marley Matlin got involved as a producer?
Yeah, so Marley came on a good bit after we had completed and been showing the film. We actually reached out to her because she was someone who, was kind of just, if you're talking about the intersection of talent and regard in the film industry, as well as being an advocate for the disability community, you're hard pressed to find
Right.
someone who does that better than Marley Matlin. And when she saw the film, she loved it. we connected, and that was a really organic coming together as well. You know, we both, when we got a chance to speak with each other, we both realized we were interested in making the same kind of content and using it in the same kind of way to, you know, not only be entertaining but raise awareness, in this case for the deafblind community, but just the disability community as a whole as well. And we just kind of hit it off from there, and she came on board, and she's been an amazing collaborator since.
That's great. Stephen, your path to this film and to this point in your career wasn't an easy one. Would you mind sharing your journey a little bit with us?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you for doing this with us, Jeff.
Thank you.
And yeah, if I can make it as brief and quick as possible, I first got the spark of acting when I was 14. There was a director in my neighborhood. His name is Brooklyn Brown. And he was shooting an independent film, Puppy Love Story, for like all the kids in the neighborhood. So I auditioned out of like 147 kids, and I actually got one of the roles. So like that gave me like my acting bug. I said, oh, I like being on set. I like doing this. Something I think I want to continue doing. And then I tried to get into like a few acting schools. It was pretty difficult to keep up with it in terms of like the payments that they were requiring. And so I kind of lost the ambition for acting. I felt like this is impossible for me to really get anywhere with this.
Sure.
So with the lack of the ambition, you know, I just found myself, you know, especially in the neighborhood in Bed-Stuy, like back then, like, you know, it wasn't always as it is now. You know, being bored, you know, as a kid, you know, and not really too many electronics or iPhones around that time to keep us like, you know, occupied, you know, we got into a lot of trouble.
Sure. And
found myself incarcerated at the age of 16. And through that incarceration, you know, it was a big eye opener and self-reflect for myself that given a second chance, you know, that being my first offense, I was sentenced to a 6 months case program and 5 years probation after. In that 6 months case program, they gave paying internships, and they asked, what is it that you love to do? I told them, you know, I like to actually act and dance, you know, something I always was pretty interested in. And they said, oh, you know, a great place for you. They said City Kids. I thought it was a daycare center. But when I got there, it was actually, you know, just for like youth to like hang out. They actually had a repertory company in there where I saw a lot of kids in there dancing, performing all these different things. And I was just there like filing papers and stuff like that. And the artistic director there, I told him, hey, I want to like be a part of this. And this is like after like my internship was like coming to an end. He said, you're in, you're here. And I was like, that's it. Like, I don't have to sign anything or anything like that. He's like, nah, you can stay. Like, this is your home. I was like, word. I said, all right, cool. And then like being a part of that, and it was in Tribeca, it was in Manhattan. It was far away from my neighborhood. Being a part of that definitely, you know, took off, maybe discovered layers, a part of myself that I didn't know I had. Because, you know, staying here in the environment that I was in, I felt like I was only stuck in this one box, and I was like kind of like all that I knew. Which is why I feel like it's very important for kids to have like the arts incorporated in the schools. So, you know, being part of that journey and just like, you know, being a part of that journey has led me to so many other opportunities and found myself along the journey of feeling through.
What inspired you to turn your story into your one-man show?
Great question. So the artistic director, Moises Belisario, who became my mentor at the at City Kids, he, you know, we'll talk, and and like the stories that I share with him, he told me, you know, why don't you just like write these stories down for therapeutic reasons? You know, who knows what you'll do with it? Probably a book or whatever. And I just started writing down stories. And he after he like went over like a few of them, he was like, yo, you want to be an actor, right? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you turn this into a one-man show? And at first I thought it was crazy. I was like, what? And I was like, nah, I can't do that. And I was a bit afraid to actually even share some of my stories with people because I didn't want to be judged.
Sure.
But and there's even a few stories that we, you know, it's being incorporated now into like into the pilot that we're actually working on now. But a part of with the one-man show, I remember we took like 2 stories, and I remember performing it at an open mic, and I was a bit nervous, but like the feedback that I got after, the way that people reacted towards, the things that I did too. I was like, wow, like I didn't know that it was going to touch people that way. And that's why I'm always so blown away of like doing work and just seeing how actually it touches the audience. Like I think that's one of the most rewarding things about this for me. So from that's when I was like, yeah, okay, this is dope. Like we should continue doing this.
You have some notable audience members. You performed for Prince William and the Duchess. How did that come about, and what was their reaction to the performance?
That was a beautiful experience, and because of that experience, actually, is the reason why we were able to actually finally put all of our energy into the show and expand into an actual one-man show. The two stories that I actually put together was actually all that we had. So in a way, I'm gonna like tell myself like I lied to the Duke. I told him yeah, we have. I said, yeah, it's a full show that we're gonna perform it to a few schools. And he was like, oh yeah, I want to help you with that. And then like before we knew it, the whole world was waiting on this full show that we didn't actually have yet put together.
Jeez.
Right. So it actually took us. So it took us like about like a week to actually put all of that together. But the way that came about, City Kids got shut down, which was really sad because I would love for like a lot of kids to experience City Kids. But I mean, I guess the people from City Kids will bring City Kids to the world. But yeah, from that, the CEO of City Kids, she needed performers to perform for like an entourage of people because there were some special guests, she said, that was coming to New York, and we didn't know who the special guest was. So I remember it was like a few of us. Moises got like a few of the kids that he knew that like got like their own material that we could present. I did like the only drama piece. I had another friend who did like music. It was other friends who did dancing, and when I did it for the entourage, they actually they emailed us back and said that they would like for my performance to be the key point of the of the day. Yeah, so it wasn't until like 2 days before that we actually knew who was actually coming.
Jeez.
Word. And like yeah, so it was actually 2 days before, and that's when I found out that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Doug, I'd like to ask you a little bit. Besides Stephen's casting is the casting of Artie. Now you spoke with a number of deafblind people. What was it you were looking for, and what did Robert provide that the others didn't?
Well, again, being that this film was heavily inspired by this real life encounter, this man named Artemio in real life, Artie is the name of the character in the film. I was looking for someone that just had this kind of really, this charisma and this light, and someone who really kind of like that light shone brightly no matter what circumstance they were in. And Robert was someone who really possessed that. Robert was not on our casting list when we were. I was working with Chris Woodfill, the associate executive director of Helen Keller National Center, who's deafblind himself, and had reached out to his network of people who are deafblind across the country to create a casting list. None of which were actors, but all of which were people that he just made sure were interested in what we were doing. But again, Robert wasn't on that list. He was working in the kitchen at Helen Keller National Center. And about halfway through our first day of casting, someone in the room was like, oh, what about Robert? I feel like he might be good for this. So Robert was pulled out of the kitchen, wasn't really explained to him what was going on, and finds himself in this room with me and a camera. And once he found out we were auditioning for a film, he instantly started just cracking all these jokes about being a movie star and needing all this time off from the kitchen to be a movie star. But it was just, he possessed this warmth and this charisma and this light that was really what we were looking for. And it was such a fortunate, serendipitous meeting.
It seems like a very, very very Hollywood casting story.
It really is. It's funny. Sometimes I hear myself tell it and it sounds like almost manufactured. Right. So like,
well, I mean, you have documented proof of it, which is great.
You have documented proof of it. It is all like quite literal. There's no hyperbole there.
Right. There seems to be some similarities between at least Artie and Jada in your previous short film. Both characters, I think, invoke empathy, but respect at the same time. They're both very confident characters, which I thought was very striking.
Yeah, that's really astute of you to point that out. And I actually wrote both of those films very close to one another. Feeling Through, I actually wrote first. I just moved to LA though, so and given the subject matter, I didn't feel like I was in a position to be able to make it in the way that I wanted to. Jada was inspired by Venice Beach, where I had just moved in Los Angeles. But I think what was also happening subconsciously, I almost think of those as like brother sister films in a lot of ways. That wasn't my intention per se, but being that they were written in close proximity, I think subconsciously there was something kind of happening there as far as exploring kind of maybe a larger general topic in two specific ways. But yeah, that's, I think that's why they share a lot of commonality, as well as just certain sensibilities, I think, that are part of like the kind of characters that I like to focus on and the kind of stories I like to tell.
Stephen, what was the casting process for you? How did you get involved in the film?
Well, there was my manager, Brandon Thomas. He sent me the script through email. He's all the way based in LA. So I remember, I did a self-tape for it. And Doug actually told me that was like one of the last few tapes that they actually received. So I was lucky to actually get a call back. And for the callback was when I was able to have the opportunity to actually audition in front of Doug. And before going in, I already looked up Doug, I looked up Jada, like the whole shebang of it. And I actually saw Doug in the elevator when I was actually going into the audition. So I knew who he was. He had no idea who I was until like he found out that I was actually auditioning for him when I asked him, where do I sign up and for it? He said, oh yeah, we're gonna start setting up in a few, you sign up over there and everything. So yeah.
As an actor, how was it we were able to approach working? I mean, working with any non-actor in itself poses some challenges, I imagine. But working with someone whose communication is not common in the film industry or in acting at all, how did you approach it as an actor? What kind of adaptations did you have to make from your performance?
Well, I mean, like, with any project that I step on, I always want to build like that chemistry with the person that I work alongside. And I was blessed to actually have the opportunity to meet with Robert. And from us actually being able to interact with each other through our interpreters, we did find cool ways actually when we were on set, like, when it was time for action and different things like that. But in terms of, I could say that it didn't affect in the way that I chose to portray my performance in any sense. And actually, like, just it worked out pretty smoothly to the thanks of the accessibility that Doug and the crew provided.
Nice. As we mentioned, there is a documentary that you made, Doug, about the production, connecting the dots, which we'll link to. It's an amazing companion piece to the film, which you got to actually reunite with the original Artemio. What was that? That's almost a getting part of the film, I think. How was that for you?
It was amazing. Like you said, we were fortunate to be rolling cameras through a lot of pre-production. We had cameras in the room when we met Robert. We had cameras in the room when Stephen and Robert met each other and had their first audition, but also part of the like kind of organic narrative that emerged that we weren't planning on per se, but there was just a desire to find Artemio, the man that I'd met now 10 years ago who inspired this. But that proved to be a really difficult task. I mean, very quickly, Helen Keller National Center was able to figure out who it was I was looking for, but no one had any contact info for him. So we spent the better part of a year trying to track down Artemio. And, on a fateful night, we'd actually gotten his address and tried writing to him first, didn't hear back. And at a certain point, I was like, I'm just going to go there and kind of let the chips fall where they may. So we were fortunate to have a small crew with me to document it, and I'm so glad they did, because it was such an amazing experience to reunite with this man Artemio. And His parents were there and really gracious. And I think what was so really moving about it was that he, even though it had been at the time that we were reuniting like 7 years from when we had first met, there was like, he still felt so familiar to me. Like I still instantly kind of was taken back to that time and place where we had connected. And he's just a really special person. So it was great to have an opportunity to also let him know everything that he'd inspired.
Sure. I would, based on what we saw in the film, at least, and I would imagine Artemio's life was like, your encounter with him was unique for you. I kind of got the impression that it wasn't necessarily unique for him.
That's correct.
Was that, did he, did he remember you? I can't imagine, you were probably just a drop in the bucket for him, I would think.
Well, you know what's funny? He did end up remembering me.
Oh, he did?
Maybe we did have quite a while together communicating, but he did end up remembering me. But yeah, Artemio is someone who is very independent, very adventurous, and someone who, you know, ventures out into New York City on his own all the time, just, you know, doing whatever it is that he pleases to do, and has many people. And it's just, I think there's something about, he's got such a adventurous spirit. It's really kind of like infectious being around him. He just loves doing new things and experiencing things. And yeah, he's interacted with many a Doug before, but I had interacted with no Artemios.
Right. Have either of you received feedback from anyone that's seen the film that gave you insight, or did they take anything away from the film that you had not intended or you were surprised to hear?
Yeah, I mean, for me, definitely, you know, when it was actually available on YouTube, I like sent it out to like a bunch of friends, and I actually didn't watch it yet on YouTube because the only time I saw it before that was at the screening. But the feedback that I was getting from like friends, they were like, you know, this is something that I really just needed to see. There's a lot going on to the year before and stuff like that, and how it affected them, and their day is way more better. Some people had said they had problems with their mom, their parents, and you know, just shedded a lot of light for them. So I was just amazed that I had no idea that this film was going to affect so many people in such a universal way.
You know, and I'll piggyback on that. I think one of the great things about putting it up and making it widely available is we now have, you know, nearly 3 million views over the last couple months plus. So many people have gotten to see it, comment on it, reach out to us, send us emails, direct messages. And I think something that has been a common theme in that, and that we've heard time and time again, is a lot of people have reached out and said, you know, in no uncertain terms, they were really struggling, given what the last year has been for them and a lot of people, and that it was exactly what they needed to see in that moment to help turn things around for them, to turn around their day or you know, their life. And that's something that we've gotten many messages like that, and it's kind of been a beautiful affirmation of, you know, the message at the heart of this film, which is just about the power of human connection despite our respective differences or challenges. And it's nice that has been resonating with people.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit about the feeling through experience?
Yeah. So, you know, we came out of this with 2 films, you know, the Feeling Through, as well as this companion documentary, Connecting the Dots, which add up to about 45 minutes total. And I quickly realized I'd also met all these amazing people in the deafblind community throughout this process. And I thought, well, how cool would it be to do an evening in and of itself, do, you know, 45 minutes of films, 45 minutes of conversation with the deafblind community. And it also was absolutely integral to us because we before we submitted to film festivals or did any kind of industry screenings, we wanted to take it to the community that was at the heart of this, the deafblind community, and make sure they were able to experience it. So I worked with Helen Keller National Center to create this fully accessible screening event called the Feeling Through Experience, which again was both films followed by a panel discussion and Q&A with myself, Robert, who's our deafblind actor, and whatever local deafblind community, wherever we were. We got to do 14 in-person ones prior to the pandemic, which was really fortunate. And I'll tell you, like, you know, you'll have a completely different understanding of what it means to experience a movie when you see it how we were, you know, holding these screenings, which was we'd have as many as 50 interpreters and support staff at a single screening to provide one-to-one accessibility, to make sure that people who are deafblind, blind, low vision, hard of hearing could all experience the film in whatever way they needed to have the best experience alongside the general public. So also the way that we were fostering this connection between communities was somewhat reminiscent of the meeting that Artemio and I had years prior.
Sure.
It's an amazing way to share the film and to have everyone be able to experience it. And then we pivoted to virtual screenings during the pandemic and did dozens of those with an interpreter box and live captions and transcripts. Accessibility has been a huge part of this journey of understanding why it's important for everyone to be able to experience and access the things that they want. And we've had beautiful, beautiful feedback from the deafblind community as a result.
Very nice. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations again. Stephen, I do want to mention, I have seen a couple comments online that people want you to play Miles Morales in a Spider-Man film. So, just throwing it out there for you.
Hey, hopefully Marvel sees it.
Yeah, let's get on that.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Congratulations and good luck at the Oscars.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.